Mr. Celine's paper for the first time, and I'm going to edit it. But I'm going to take it out of bold first because I can't stand to look at it in bold. All right. So, what I usually do is I'll take it like kind of paragraph by paragraph and then see what needs to be changed and then kind of go back once over. You could alternatively, read the whole thing first, and that might be helpful too. I just kind of like to chunk it first because if I read the whole thing, then I might understand it more than someone who's reading it for the first time, if that makes sense. So I want to make sure that each paragraph logically makes sense, and I get all the information up front that I would need as a reader. And the good thing is I actually have never read this story. So I know you guys read it with Miss P, I think, because I had pictures of things on the wall for it, but I have not, so I will know if there's anything that doesn't make sense. All right, so it says, in the story Raymond's Run by Toni Cade Bambara, Squeaky, the protagonist, is a hard person to love. She is a hard person to love because she has a negative outlook on life, because she is always looking for a fight, and because she is conceited. All right, so I see that the thesis is that this person is hard to love. And so that's really clear right up front, which is great. It has the commas to put the story in here, and it has parentheses around that, which is good. I think it should probably be like that, I think. Could be wrong, but I think that's how it should be. So Squeaky is the protagonist. So we've got your claim here, hard to love, and then it gives basically three reasons why. So that's a classic way to organize it. Negative outlook on life, always looking for a fight, and because she's conceited. I'm going to take out this because, and just leave it like that because it says it multiple times. In the sentence, so just cut that down. Okay, the most obvious reason why Squeaky is hard to love is because she has a negative outlook on life. Very clear topic sentence that matches the first sentence, or the first claim support in the thesis statement here. So that's good. That's the first reason why. Whenever she mentions someone, it seems like they are always stupid or a fool. Okay, so whenever she mentions someone, that's individual. So it seems like he or she is, I'm just going to take out always, stupid or a fool. Okay, so whenever she mentions someone, it seems like he or she is stupid or a fool. Also, comma, Squeaky thinks that everyone is out to get her and Raymond. Perfect. For example, love it, good transition word and a comma, and you're giving your evidence. When she is walking down the street and runs into some girls she knows, right away she starts thinking awful things about them, like that Mary Louise isn't grateful and that Rosie is too stupid to know that there is no big deal of difference between her and Raymond. All right. So this is a run-on sentence, so we need to break it up into smaller chunks. When she is walking down the street and runs into some girl she knows, she's always thinking awful things about them. Okay, so period. That's a complete sentence, a complete thought. Into some girls she knows. That feels kind of informal. I might change it. When she's walking down the street, runs into maybe some acquaintances. I think it's probably fine. I'm probably being a little nitpicky, but I might change that to acquaintances just because the language, some girls she knows, feels a little bit informal to me, but I don't know. That also could be character, like how the character would talk. So I might just leave that alone because it's not like something that has to change. Okay. So I put a period here. Starts thinking awful things about them. She thinks that Mary Louise isn't grateful, and that comma, that's an Oxford comma, so it doesn't have to be there, but I'm going to put it anywhere. Put it in there anyway, because I think it's important to use the Oxford comma, and that Rosie is too stupid to know that there is, okay, and that's a direct quote. So see that language, at first I was going to try and correct that grammar, but I'm not going to because it's a direct quote, so I'm going to leave that alone. But I'm going to put the quotation marks inside the period there because the quotation is not the full sentence. The quotation is evidence. So if the quotation was like the whole sentence was a quotation, I would put the quote mark on the outside of the period, but since the quotation is just a portion of the sentence, the period really goes for the whole sentence, not the quotation. So I move the period to the other side. Squeaky doesn't think kind thoughts about people, and she doesn't act kindly towards them either. We have all heard the phrase, and then dash, you can't love anyone until you love yourself, period. And then the same thing here. In this story, we see that the opposite might be true too. It is impossible to be lovable if you don't show any love to others. So I'm going to take out any, and I'm just going to say love to others. In this, I'm just trying to make it simple so it's easier to understand. So taking out words that I don't need. We have all heard the phrase, you can't love anyone else until you can love yourself. In this story, we see that the opposite might be true too. It is impossible to be lovable if you don't show love to others. Okay, I like that. I'm wondering if I should put a comma here. In the story, comma, we see that the opposite might be true too. Dash, yeah, I like that. Okay, so the reason, again, Mr. Celine is using a dash here is because he wants to emphasize that point. So this is called a non-restrictive element. I believe we talked about this during your daily language review, but we will also be talking about it in a couple weeks. I have a lesson on this. So you can use, he could have used a comma here, and then the end mark would have been the period, but he wanted to emphasize these points, so he put a dash instead. A dash doesn't have to be bookends like parentheses do, but you do have to have another end to the dash, but if it comes at the end of the sentence, then you don't need it. So this works great. All right. Sorry, this is taking a long time, but this is what I do. I go through this thought process. All right, next paragraph. Furthermore, Squeaky is hard to love because she is combative. She is always looking for a fight. I don't know why his dashes look weird. It's probably fine. There are many times in the text where Squeaky mentions that she is ready to fight someone, that in fact she would much rather just knock you down and take my chances rather than talk about anything. Okay, this sentence is too long for me. I'm going to break it up. So there are many times in the text where Squeaky mentions that she is ready to fight someone, period. In fact, she would much rather just knock you down and take, or okay, because it says take my chances, it's going to make improper grammar, so I'm going to go back here. In fact, she says she would much rather just knock you down and take my chances rather than talk about anything. Period. Good. Okay, at the beginning of the story, comma, good. Squeaky says that if anyone has something to say about her brother, comma, they have to come through her first. They have to come through her first. Squeaky says, if anyone has something to say about her brother, they have to come through her first. They would have to go through her. And I'm going to say, go through her first. And then later on in the story, comma, and then I'm going to take out and. And is a conjunction, and is used to join sentences together. So you should never really start a sentence with a conjunction because you're not joining anything together. So I'm going to take the and out. Authors will do that for effect, but I don't think it's necessary here. Then later in the story, comma, when she and Raymond see the girls on the street, when Mary Louise asks Raymond what grade he is in, Squeaky says right away, "You got anything to make?" Okay, so then later in the story, when she and Raymond see the girls on the street, comma, I'm going to take out the when, again, taking out words to make it more focused and clear. Mary Louise asks Raymond what grade he is in, comma, Squeaky says right away. Later in the story, when she... Okay, so I'm going to put a period here. Then later in the story, and I'm going to say she right now is vague. Oh, when Squeaky and Raymond see the girls on the street, Mary Louise asks Raymond what grade he is in, period. Squeaky says right away, period. "You got anything to say to my brother? You say it to me, Mary Louise Williams of Raggedy Town, Baltimore." Okay, so that looks good. Now, the one thing that I would say is this is ending on evidence. And so if you think about race formatting, you usually don't want to end with evidence. You want to end with explanation. So I'm looking, and it looks like the explanation is coming in the next paragraph. So let me read that before I do anything else. So as a reader, comma, you kind of understand why Squeaky is so combative. However, comma, that doesn't make it any easier to love her as a character. Sure, people are probably really mean to Raymond, and she definitely has a lot on her plate as a young kid. That doesn't make it right for her to always think about using violence and conflict to get her way. Just because we can understand why she is angry doesn't mean we agree with how she deals with her anger. Squeaky doesn't even give anyone a chance to be nice. It's as if she would rather fight than make friends. This also makes her a very hard character to love. Okay, so this is the explanation. So I'm torn here. Like, do I want to make it a new paragraph, or do I want to make it one longer paragraph? I kind of feel like it should go together. Okay, and then one thing that I'm noticing here is that there's an inconsistency with the spacing after the periods. So you can see some of them have 2. Oh, maybe it was just me that made the ones. I think it was. Okay, so then that's just something to be aware of, but I think Mr. Sleen did it right. Oh, nope, there's 1. Okay, so you just want to be consistent. So there's 2 types of formatting, APA and MLA. MLA formatting is usually used more for literature, and that would be to have 1 space after your period, but APA is used more typically for like science and math, and those would have 2 spaces after a period. So for me, I think that's kind of a nitpicky thing for a 6th grader, but I would say you need to pick one and be consistent about it, okay? So whatever you're doing, whether it's 1 or 2, you need to do the same number of spaces throughout. So 1 or 2. And so I'm going to just